Today, we're going to look at the ANRAN 4-camera wireless network recorder. And this is actually a really neat system. I'm going to try and go through all the features of it. It's a snap to set up. It's one of the easier ones that I've tried, and it actually works. It builds its own Wi-Fi network, and it works. Let's check it out. We're going to look at the ANRAN HD home security camera system today. This is a kit that comes with a DVR and 4 cameras. So let's crack it open and check out what's in the package. We'll look at the specifications first of all. It features cameras that have a resolution of 1920 by 1080 or 1280 by 960 or 1280 by 720 depending on the camera. Remote viewing on your PC, smartphone. And also you can plug a monitor into it, of course. Has motion detection, scheduled, and full day recordings. Cameras are megapixel cameras. Has an auto infrared cut filter, so it'll switch between day and night. Motion detection, of course, it supports H.264 compression. Backup device, you can plug in a USB hard drive or USB flash drive. In the box, several other boxes inside. You get your network video recorder or NVR, the accessory pack, and 4 cameras. The accessory pack has all the hardware for mounting, for securing the cameras. It also contains a mouse for setting up the NVR, a power supply for the network video recorder, and 4 separate power supplies for the 4 cameras. As you can see, the cameras themselves operate 12 volts, and it says center tip is positive, so it's just a standard 12 volt adapter, although these plugs do look a little bit non-standard, but I think a standard barrel connector would plug into them. We get 4 of the adapters and all the mounting hardware. This one's a little larger. This is for the recorder. This one's a 2 amp 12 volt output. Here are the cameras, and these ones are, I think they're 1080p, these ones. So here are the cameras. Kind of looks a lot like that other one, doesn't it? The other wireless camera. In fact, it looks almost identical. 1080p. The antenna screws onto them. These are Wi-Fi cameras, although yeah, these are just strictly Wi-Fi. There's no Ethernet port on this at all. Just a port to plug in the power, and of course there is a reset button for resetting the camera if something goes wrong, but we shouldn't have to do that. So there's the 4 cameras out and ready to go, and I'm going to be setting these up to demonstrate them. I'm not going to be permanently mounting them at this point in time, but I will be placing them outside in different locations, and I'll just kind of set them up, and then we'll play around with the recorder as I continue the video. But I know that I'm going to get my trolls out there are going to be squawking right away. I'll just tell you right now, save your breath, okay? We don't need to hear about hardwired versus wireless, okay? I think anybody that has any common sense whatsoever will understand that a hardwired security camera system is the best. So we don't need to hear your opinions on hardwired versus wireless. Yes, hardwired is better, but hardwire is not an option for everybody. If you can put in hardwired cameras, then knock yourself out. But there are many situations where someone can't for many reasons. One, maybe they aren't permitted to drill holes in the building, or they just can't get the wire to where the camera needs to go. And in those situations, they don't have a lot of choice but to use wireless cameras. So this is a wireless camera solution for someone who wants to put in security cameras, but all they can do is plug them in. There's no option to run wire. There's many reasons why people can't put in wiring. But if you could put in a hardwired system, that would be the preferred way to do it. Okay, here's the network recorder. You see, I have a system myself that's already a hardwired system. So I'm going to be setting this thing up for demonstration, but I won't necessarily be replacing my existing hardwired system with this system. But I will be doing an evaluation to see how well this performs. And I'll be able to report to you how it compares to the hardwired system that I currently have, which is a system that has not been trouble-free. It has certainly had its share of problems. It's had many power supplies that have crapped out on it for both the cameras and the recorder. But I have a Lorex, which is by Fleur. That's what I have. So as you can see, the network recorder has a couple of antennas on it as well. This thing is set up to be plug and play. There's not even a power switch on it. On the back, you got a VGA output to connect to a computer type monitor, and there's also an HDMI that will connect to an HDMI monitor. On the front, there's really nothing. There's a buzzer and there's some lights that tell you what it's doing. So once it's powered up, it should automatically start pairing with the cameras and start recording. Before setting this thing up, I think we'll take a look under the hood and see how well this thing's put together. So there it is. Not much to these things these days. It comes with a Seagate 1 terabyte drive, standard SATA drive, and one small circuit board. It has a backup battery on here. This will be for backing up the clock, and your standard USB input on the back, and your inputs and outputs, and then the two antennas, which they're plugged into the board right there. So that'll be the Wi-Fi card on this unit right there. So not a heck of a lot. But it does have a 1 terabyte drive, so that should store several days of recordings. Several weeks if you're only recording when there's motion. So I'm going to put it back together and we'll get this thing set up. So I plugged the network video recorder into my plasma. Now this is not an HD plasma. So if you're going to nitpick on the clarity of the username and password, that's got nothing to do with the network video recorder. This plasma that I'm using in my shop is 852 by 480. That's the resolution. So the first thing I need to do is I need to log in and enter the password for this thing. To do that, I have to plug in the mouse. So let me get the password entered and changed, and then we'll go about setting it up. Okay, once entering into the administrator screen, first thing you do is you need to set your time zone. So where I am here, we're at, I think it's -8 hours where we are. And we'll set up the date and time. It already has the correct date on it here. Keyboard type, type 1, type 2, etc. I'll just leave it like that. And we're going to apply this. It should set the time. Oh, time's not set. Of course I haven't plugged it into the network yet, so it's not going to pick up the time until I actually plug it into the network, which I haven't done just yet. So I'm just going to go to next. Wireless channel. So we can pick a channel that this will use. And we can change different modes here. FCC will probably only let me go to channel 11, I think. Yeah, so you have to select your region because the Wi-Fi channels are set by your region. So we can pick a Wi-Fi channel, and typically you want to pick a channel that you're not using on your router for your phones and computers and stuff, because the network cameras are going to generate a lot of traffic, so it will congest your 2.4 gigahertz channel. So pick one that's away from where you are. So I've gone and I've dragged a network cable in so that I can plug it in, because it's going to want to connect to the network in order to set itself up. So I'll connect it to the network, and I'm going to select auto config for the network setup, and it's pulled an IP address. It's also giving me a cloud ID. At this point it brings up the hard disk list, shows me the capacity, it's formatted, it's ready to go. So I click next. With a little luck, all I need to do is connect the 4 cameras, and the 4 cameras should automatically synchronize with the NVR. So let's plug the cameras in and watch what happens. Okay, cameras are connected and turned on. Let's see if the system will automatically find them. And there we go. The camera's automatically paired. I didn't have to do anything. Took about 30 seconds, and all 4 cameras have now paired with the recorder. And I don't know if you can see, there's not much of a delay. But there we have 4 cameras set up and recording. So the next thing is I'm going to take the 4 cameras and I'm going to put them at different locations. Now it's dark now, so I want to go take them and put them outside and just plug them in and just kind of set them up so that we can sort of get a picture. And we'll play around with this thing, see how it performs in the dark, and then in the morning, once light out, we'll finish up the video showing how it looks during the day. So now that's how simple that was. I just plugged it into the monitor, and I plugged the cameras in, and I plugged my network cable in. And in my case, I'm actually doing it over a wireless link. Incidentally, this has got these silly mounts on, which I wasn't really a big fan of before because I didn't think they turned around. But you have to loosen both of these screws. If you loosen both the screws on both sides of this mount, you can turn the camera. It doesn't turn freely though. You have to loosen both, and then to adjust your tilt height, you adjust the screw here. So one adjusts the tilt height, and then the other 2 you can rotate it. So that's how you adjust these cameras, so that you can orient the mount. If you're mounting it to the ceiling, you can orient the mount any which way. The last one that I reviewed, I loosened off one of the screws and it didn't turn, but there's another screw on the other side that also has to come undone, and then you can rotate the mounts like that. So that's how that works. So you can put them up, mount the bracket in any orientation, and then adjust it after the fact. You got to remember to do both screws on both sides, because undoing one won't unlock it. Okay, I've mounted all 4 cameras quickly. I just put the 4 of them up and plugged them in. Now the AC adapters can't be installed where they're directly exposed to the weather. In my case, I've got them under the eaves for the outdoor cameras. Well, they're all outdoors, but they're under the eaves plugged into an extension cord so that they're not going to get wet. But that's important because they're not waterproof, so you have to make sure that the adapters are going to be protected from direct exposure to the weather, either in a moisture or weatherproof box you can get that installs over your outlet and has a closable plastic cover. That's acceptable to use that, or In my case, this is just a temporary installation, so I just stuck one, basically two of them in front of the workshop here, one facing into the driveway, one facing across the driveway. If I walk out, you'll see how quick the response is between them. Close down the workshop door. So I'm going to leave these cameras sitting here for a while because this is going to be a little bit of a test here. So I'm going to leave them up for a couple of weeks just to play around with it and play around with the system. But next we'll go over some of the menus on the cameras, how you can operate them. Oh, incidentally, if you want to reposition the camera, just take the mouse and drag the screen where you want it to go. Right, and you can move your screens around just like that. If you double click on it, you'll bring it up full screen. There's no lights on in my backyard. What you're seeing there is, that's the other camera, the wireless other one that I just showed off the other day. That's that one that's looking back. That's the infrared emitter from it. And there's an infrared emitter from one of my other cameras, my hardwired system. And this one's mounted directly below the other one. So all that's out there is infrared light, but there's a fair bit of it because there's 4 cameras out there right now. So there's a lot of infrared light out in that part of the yard. Bright as day. Out here, there's just the infrared light from this and another camera that's out front. And the same with this shot here. All the light that you're seeing there, that's from that one camera because there's no other cameras that are covering my front yard. There is a camera up in the tree, but it's actually facing out towards the street. So it's not providing any infrared light at all to my front lawn. What you're seeing there, this is this camera that's illuminating this and nothing else. It's actually pretty good. You can see the entire front yard. Let's play around with some of the menus. To access the menu, you right-click your mouse, and then you can go into your settings, like for playback. And I have not played around with this yet. Like if you want to add a wireless camera, you click on wireless add, and then you'll go into your administrator. Oh, see, we can add more cameras. There's 4 devices now. It creates its own private network, 172.20.14. This is creating its own private network here, and then you can add additional devices. I'm going to get out of here because I'm not adding anything. But if I go into split screen, I can one-time view, and then I can pick one camera at a time. Of course, I can just double click on that. Right, that's another way. Or I can just go into 4 times view. If I just double click on a camera, it goes to that camera. Video playback. So go into video playback and it's going to show me down here on the bottom, it's showing me what it's captured. And I haven't even set this thing up yet. So right now it's just should be recording everything. But if I click on the camera here, I should be able to play it back. You just click on. This is before this was before the 4th camera was online. Go by the hour. I select hour mode or day mode. So now if I go to here, this is where the 4th camera was added. So if I go to even to here and select playback, this is before I close down the door. And this is the minutes. So this is 35 minutes. So if I go to like 40 minutes here, I'm trying to find the part where my daughter came home. Yeah, she should be rolling up here any second here in her car and then walking in the door. Okay, so there, I found when she's rolling up at 6:41 in 3 seconds. So now you get an idea of the motion, how the motion records on it. Actually looks to be a little easier to navigate than my existing system, although my other system records 8 cameras. This one, I've only got 4. But yeah, as far as functionality goes, it looks good. But as you can see, the update is in real time. Anyway, that's how the Playback works. As I say, I'm going to leave this system installed here for a bit, and I'm going to log in. I'm going to get the app on my phone. We'll do that. But typically, the recorder doesn't have to be hooked up to a monitor or anything. You can plug it into a computer monitor or any TV. It has HDMI out and a PC out. And this, I'm using the PC out on this because, as you can see, this TV has a PC input on it. But you can use it with over HDMI to any regular TV, or over RGB to a computer monitor. But you don't need to use a computer monitor if you don't want. You can access everything, and we're going to do that next. We're going to access the unit from my phone. So here it is on the network. When I set it up on channel 1 so that it's not going to interfere with my networks that I have. These are, everything on channel 1 is not in my place. So I put it on a completely clear channel as far as what my own network is using, and that way it'll avoid interference with my other network devices that I have. But you can see the signal is actually quite strong because the unit itself forms its own router for the cameras. So it forms its own dedicated network for the cameras, which is important because when you have cameras that are sharing the same network as your internet traffic, you tend to cause congestion. So most camera systems, even when I'm installing cameras at work, will set up a dedicated access point just for the security cameras and keep the security camera traffic off of the internet traffic and put it on a separate channel. So this is doing that with its own built-in network. Okay, this is the app. You can get the app, ARCCTV. You can get it at the App Store for your Apple device and Google Play for your Google devices. This allows remote control from your phone. So I'm just going to download that now and get it set up. One thing you may have noticed when I had the unit apart was that there's no fan in here, unlike my other Lorex system by Fleur, which has a fan on the CPU, which has a tendency to fail. There's no fan on this one, and the reason for that is because this is a digital system. The cameras themselves are already in a digital format. It doesn't have to digitize. So there's a lot less processing to be done. This is just recording a stream. So we have to give permission to the app, and I'm going to have to create a password and a username for this. You register by entering an email address or a phone number. I used my email address, and I've just received the notification, so I'm going to have to get the verification code. I got 43 seconds to do it, so I better hurry. Okay, once I've verified my account, I'm going to click on plus. I'm going to enter a kit. It finds my device. I'm going to click on it. So once entering the required information and my password, the devices come up. And from here I can select SD or HD. I can go to Playback, and I can play everything back. I can move the timeline here. Playback a recording from an earlier time just by sliding the timeline. I can pick which channel I want to view. If I tap here, I can now have the 4 cameras displayed in real time on my phone. So here's a shot of how it looks on the monitor in the daytime, and I've manually adjusted my shutter speed to avoid the rolling shutter, just so you can see that The display actually does not flicker, but what we were seeing before, which is the interaction between the plasma display and the camera shutter. As plasma displays typically operate at a non-standard refresh rate, typically 100 or 200 or 600 frames per second. I don't know what this one refreshes at. I know my newer ones refresh at 600 frames per second. This one here is a very old plasma, so this one may be a lower rate. Anyway, manually adjusting the shutter speed, of course, as you can see, eliminates the flicker. And as you can see, these cameras actually produce a fairly pleasant picture during the day. Good color rendition. I got lots of, my grass is half dead. It's winter time here, so nothing's really growing. But that's how the picture looks during the day. When looking at the image full screen, there's plenty of detail. And again, remember, what I'm shooting off the screen here is a standard definition. This is just a standard definition screen. If I plugged it into a computer monitor, I would get a much better picture than this. But I don't have a computer monitor handy in the workshop here, so that's why I'm using this one. Once again, if I go back into video playback, I can scroll back. It starts out when I actually started making this recording. Goes right back there, but I can scroll ahead in time and see what was going on. It tells me what time this was recorded right down here. This was recorded at 10:07 this morning. And it has all these times here that I can directly search for. So if I go to 11 o'clock, it'll take me right to 11 o'clock off of camera number 3. Let's try backing up a file. So file, backup, down here. Click backup and it says USB storage is not found. Please insert USB storage, and it gives you a minute and plug in my USB storage. If you had a USB hub, you could just plug it into that, I would imagine. I don't have one, so I can't try it. I guess I could go find one, but let's try that. Let's just unplug the mouse and plug the stick in and see what it does. It says backed up successfully. So let's go look at what the files are that it backed up. So what it does is when you select the files here you want to back up. Oops. I went back to live. You go back to video playback. You select the files you wish to back up. So if I go and pick, say, camera 1 at 12 o'clock or camera 2 at 12 o'clock, it will back up. I've been recording for 10 minutes there so far, but if I go and say pick camera number 1 at 11 o'clock, or say camera 4 at 11 o'clock, if I want to back this up, it'll give me the full hour. So if I want to back that up, I'll click on backup, and it tells me I have a minute to plug in the USB stick. So let's plug the USB stick in. And now it's going to copy this entire file. One of the things I noticed about this unit is that it backs up the files as an AVI file, not some proprietary format like my other system. My Lorex system uses files that are .264, and you need specialized playback to play it back. Same with some of the other cameras that I've got that record onto SD cards. They back up the file as a .264. So once the backup is done, you just unplug the USB stick. If I had a USB hub, I'd just be able to click OK. You can also right click and go into your color adjustment if you want to adjust the color. Brightness example. So you'll see the brightness adjusting here. So you can adjust the color, balance, contrast, saturation of each of your cameras. You can make it really colorful if you want. I've just been recording everything at the default setting, but you can also set your infrared mode for daytime or nighttime. So that'll turn it into infrared mode even during the day. are automatic. There are different settings for different situations. There's a bright setting, for example, which will brighten the picture up, or a soft setting, which will make the picture a little less contrasty, or back to the normal setting. You can do this for each of the cameras. Set the cameras up so that they'll record. They always record full motion unless you tell them not, or full time unless you tell them not to. You can also set it up so that they'll record if there's any motion detected. How you do that is you click on your right click and you go into System Setup. And you're going to go into Record Settings. Now, by time, here's the hours all in red that's going to record full time. If you also want to record motion on certain days of the week, you can go down and select motion and make your row green. So we can do the whole row at once. There we go. So you can record motion as well as, and I'm going to do this down on Saturday here because today is Saturday. There. And I'm going to copy it to all the channels. And I'm going to apply it. So now I've set it up. It's going to record full time right now. Sunday, Saturday, or well, actually Sunday through Saturday is going to record full time. That's the red. The green is motion, and I've just set it up now just for Saturday, Sunday, just for this test. So I'm going to go apply that, and then click OK. And now there should be motion detection, and we'll let the thing record for a while and see what it captures. Okay, I've had it recording for a few hours on motion as well as continual. So I right click and go to Playback. I have to put in my administrator password. So you put your password in using the keyboard, moving the mouse and clicking. Once I put my password in, if I go down and look at this by the hour, you can see I can search down here. These are motion triggered events, or if I go to time, it will show the full events. If I pick the time here, time of the day, it'll show what's a full event and what is a motion triggered event. If I turn off the time and click search, it'll now only show me the motion triggered events. It does store several seconds before the actual event happens. So when something trips it, it records about 5 seconds or so prior to the tripped event. Oh, there, I'm working on the car there. Here we go. So say I want to download this file. For example, I went in to get a flashlight so that I could see what I was doing. So this is the file here, camera 4, and it's a looks like a 3 meg file. I went and got my flashlight so that I could, I'm tucking wires in. So that's how it recorded it. It tripped when it saw motion, which would have been me flashing the flashlight. That's what triggered it initially. And it'll record this event. So if I want to download this event, I click on backup, and then I have to plug my USB storage in. So I unplug the mouse and I plug in the USB storage. And now it's going to back up that file. Okay, that's backed up. I can unplug the USB stick. Pretty much all I can show you on this thing because it's a pretty straightforward little unit. Plug the mouse back in and it's ready to go. Back to live. As you can see, the car's now been moved. And if I want to play back remotely or view it remotely, I can bring up the ARC CTV app. If I go back to Playback, It's showing me all the events on the timeline here. If I slide the timeline back a bit and hit play, it'll play the timeline. There's the car being back out after I finished doing the install. My daughter took her car and put it back where it belongs. So that's playing back now on my phone from the DVR, or the network video recorder in VR. That's pretty much it. The link to this product is in the description. I think this is a great little unit. You know, I mean, I don't BS around equipment when I'm doing reviews. I try to give an honest opinion of how I feel equipment is, and if something's not quite up to par, I certainly let you know. I think this one here is up to par. The only one thing that I didn't really care for was the mounts. Just they are finicky to set up. But you can orient the camera anyway, so it's a little more work. You've got to use your Allen key, and you've got to loosen off Allen screws and position the camera and tighten them up. But again, that's a one-time thing. That's something you're going to do the first time you do the installation, and once you've got the camera set, you're going to forget about it, and it's not going to be an issue. So that's the only thing that I thought could have been an improvement, was to have a conventional ball mount on the camera, just because it's so much simpler. You screw the camera down, you point it, you tighten it, it's done. Whereas with this one here, you put the mount up, and then you got to start loosening multiple screws to adjust the camera in the angle that you want, and then tighten them down. And the camera will come off that bracket. If you loosen the screws too much, it'll fall off, and then it's just hanging by the wire. So it's a little more finicky to set them up, but once they're set up, really it's not an issue. So I think that that's a pass. I find no fault with this unit. It's very simple to operate. The files that it creates are standard AVI files, which you should be able to play on anything, and it just automatically copies them. Putting a USB hub on would mean not having to unplug the mouse to plug the USB stick in. But even that's not a big deal. Unplug the mouse, plug in the USB stick, and it automatically copies the file for you. Anyway, that's it for this one. As I say, link to this product is in the description. We'll catch you on the next one real soon. Bye for now.